A kind day to you all, I am Kinsmarck, and as requested, I've returned to Survarium to report on its rather substantial recent updates. I've checked into the new content already, and I've come to find there's sadly a fair amount to criticize. However, it comes with some good news, so let's get straight into it. The .30 and subsequent .31 updates were fairly content-heavy, including a new King of the Hill style game mode, Last Stand, which I've yet to inspect myself, the Knowledge of the Forest skill tree, which finally renders an anomaly and artifact-centric skill spec a viable option, though its inclusion has moved general artifact use to a skill one has to spec for, which I'm not fond of. Yet another expansion of the game's arsenal, including the OTS-14 Grossa, Scar H, VHS-2, the FN Minimi LMG, and perhaps most controversial of all, the Barrett M82, which is now easily the most ridiculously overpowered weapon in the entire game, superior even to the VSS-K, and significantly so at that. Its only disadvantage is the sound of its report. And a handful of new armor pieces were also added, some of which reflecting the masks that were removed from certain helmets and added in as their own standalone pieces, which I'm kind of fond of. And finally, amongst a host of other smaller changes, such as the removal of timed repairs, the adjustment of certain grenade issues, the recent updates introduced the first rudimentary version of character customization to the game. One can choose from 7 preset faces at present, and none of them are all that appreciably different. However, it's a start, if kind of an underwhelming one. So, all of that said, I want to clear the air regarding a couple of things, and so my commentary over combat is, for this episode, recorded in post. I share the concerns that many of you have raised in comments and private messages regarding the constant addition of new content to this game, and to Vostok's interactions with their own community, especially on their forums. With each new set of content, invariably have come new problems, and it seems that up till this point, Vostok were content to implement as much content as possible, and then just sort it all out properly later. While I can understand that approach to development to a degree, it's come with its share of criticism from those who expected a more stable experience, whether or not the game is still technically in early access. And I can certainly understand as well where that criticism is coming from, assuming it's legitimate and not the usual sort of half-educated knee-jerk nonsense I've seen a lot of folks spew about it. No, this game is not pay to win. If you try to make that claim, you're only demonstrating a poor understanding of its paid features and what they entail. It is getting pretty pay to progress, however, and that's another issue. And come on, can we knock it off with the conspiracy theory nonsense about premium users getting shielded from hack bans? Please? This is easily verifiably false. Vostok regularly post ban lists, and premium account holders have regularly appeared on those lists. End of argument! Sure, a couple of known hackers are still active, yes, and some of them even post self-incriminating video evidence to their own YouTube channels, like idiots. That just means Vostok, who still conduct their hackuzation investigations on an individual case-by-case basis, something else I think they should change as it happens, haven't gotten to them yet. There are a lot of hackers, as we've all encountered, and as long as Vostok keep their complaint system the way it is, it takes a while to account for them all. However, all of that said, some of Vostok's reactions to the criticism they've received haven't exactly reflected very well upon them either. Threatening to ban people from their forums for compiling lists of glitches and other issues, for instance, or for questioning Vostok about their actions, compounding the perceptions that something is indeed amiss. I know you're tired of hearing about these same grievances again and again and again, Vostok. Hell, I'm tired for you just reading what I have, and yet some of these responses I've seen, whether you're irritated or not, just aren't acceptable from a professional entity. And they don't engender a very appreciative or patient response from your community. Whether they possess the capacity to properly articulate it or not, and a lot don't, I know, they're pestering you because they're excited to see what you're working on come to fruition, whether or not they're patient about it, especially regarding the free play mode. And here's where some relieving news comes in for everyone. Vostok recently posted an open letter to the community explaining that they've heard the constant criticism regarding the current development patterns and made certain company changes in an attempt to rectify them. an excerpt of which reads, "We try to make each update interesting by bringing something new to Survarium. Unfortunately, many elements of the game require a lot more time to develop than we actually have within the production cycle of one single update. This leads to the fact that due to regular updates, the developers are constantly switching from long-term tasks to current short-term work in the patches. This, in turn, leads to delays in production. The issues of stability and performance are still relevant. The complexity of the project is growing with each update, and with it grows the probability of breaking something when we make a major change to the game. We wish we had more time to test global changes in the game, however, this is impossible while we release updates every 1 to 1.5 months. After weighing up the pros and cons, we came to the following decision. All major changes to the game will be included in big updates, which we plan to release every 3 to 4 months. I know this news probably isn't what a lot of players want to hear. However, I think it's a more honest and realistic development cycle schedule than the self-compromising one Vostok have operated under until now, and which seems, at their own admission, to have caused a lot of problems people have criticized them for. It's inconvenient news, sure, as it means longer waits from one update to the next, though I think it'll end up good news in the long run. Time will tell, I suppose. It depends on how well Vostok adapt to and take advantage of the new schedule. Now, all of that out of the way, a couple of things to cover regarding the actual combat prior to the conclusion of this episode. The new running animations. They're not so great. Kind of a step in the reverse, if you ask me. The new jump animations. Perplexingly floaty. It almost seems like one hovers in the air for a second or so, and makes jumping feel even more sluggish than it already did. Other than that, the game remains much the same as it has, and as a clarification for those who can't comprehend the concept, yes, I do still enjoy Survarium. One can, in fact, criticize something and still enjoy it, I remind you. As I've said in the past, I practice tough love, as I still want to see this game reach its potential, and I honestly think it can with the right direction. Calling someone on a mistake is not a condemnation, and it seems a lot of people forget that when it comes to hearing someone else give constructive criticism. Anyway, all of that is everything I have for this episode covering Survarium. I will cover a little more of it in the very near future, as I still want to test a few new things. So thank you all kindly for watching. I am Kinsmarck here at Less Level Press, and as always, I wish you all good gaming, and Godspeed. Oh, Jesus! Hi!